Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Now this is a different sort of video. This is a tutorial video on how I create the team sheets that are in some of my Football Manager series. You know, the one that we may have seen in the Monaco series, the current series with Huddersfield, the Sunderland series, etc, etc. I'm just going to go through the whole process on how I do it. It's going to be unedited, so there's going to be a few mistakes here and there which I'll make in terms of either speaking or on the screen, or I'll go back on something which I don't like, etc, etc. So this entire video is unedited. I don't know how long it's going to be. It's probably going to be about 45 minutes, maybe 50 minutes, maybe even an hour. But it does take me a long time to get through this. So, and I'm going to show you the entire process of how I do it, because there's a lot of stuff to go through. And I'm sure you want to know, like, from start to finish, like, how it all works out. I'll probably put in the comments down below as well the time code for certain bits that you might want to know, such as, like, replacing the players, or changing the colors, or masks and stuff like that. So this is basically it. So unedited proudly, this is just a straight video, and as I said, there will be some mistakes here and there, such as me hitting my microphone, but yeah, we'll try and get through this as quickly as possible, but bear with me if it isn't that fast. So yeah, so basically, with the team sheets that I create, I only use After Effects. I sometimes use Photoshop, but only for, like, resizing stuff, because there's some bits that have to be resized, etc, like the badges. I used to do the players resizing, but not anymore. Although, saying that, the Photoshop does come in handy when I have to, like, edit a new player in. So, like, if I sign a player, and then I have to, obviously, put his face onto, like, a Huddersfield player, then I have to use Photoshop for that. I've just hit my mic again. So yeah, this is going to be the entire process from start to finish on how I do them. And, you know, we'll get into it. So first of all, I always start off with After Effects, and I try and come up with an idea in my head on how I want it to look. Now, I have had a few ideas in my head on how we're going to do it, but I think we're going to do a simple one. You can obviously follow this tutorial and follow, like, step by step, but there's some bits that you might want to change as well, and etc. And then I'll show you, like, how I'm basically make it faster to, like, edit, because like, the first initial bit is, like, really long to get through, and then after that it's just simply replacing all the footage again, etc. So first of all, we want to load up After Effects. Now, I do have the Adobe subscription, because I am a university student. I know, I'm 25, I'm a university student, so I have an Adobe subscription, which is fairly cheap. It's about £15, I think, a month. So if you want to obviously get the subscription, then that is probably the best place to get it. Like, if you are a student. If you aren't a student, then I think you can get After Effects just by itself on a subscription, but I'm not 100% sure on the price. So yeah, but yeah, so we load up After Effects, and then we always load up a new composition. Now, I'm just going to call this team sheet test. We'll just call it team sheet test. On the sort of start time code and the duration, I always, like, tend to leave it for 30 seconds. I think we'll do it for 30 seconds this time, because yeah, it's pretty much the standard for me, like 30 seconds. I always edit it afterwards if I need to, like, make it longer, but I think for this tutorial we'll just make it 30 seconds. So as you see, we got a blank screen here, and pretty standard, pretty simple stuff. As you know, my sort of workspace is maybe a bit different to yours as well, so don't fret if you can't find something. I also will move out of the way for bits which I'm blocking as well. So so yeah, we got this composition here, and as you see, we've got a blank screen, which I normally start working with. Now, I always start off with a solid. So for this, you want to go to Layer at the top, and then New, and then Solids. And for this tutorial, we're going to pick Manchester City to do a team sheet on. And I've already got the hex codes ready, which we'll come to this in a minute. But I just copied this hex code from the internet. And then I click the color to bring up the sort of color palette. And then copy it into there, so I get the sky blue. And then it will create a solid for me, which is there. So that's now my background. So I'm just going to lock that so I don't move it, like, later on. Now, next is basically the design of how I want it to look. Now, I'm going to go for a simple design. I'm going to go for a similar one, which you may have seen in the intro. Oh, sorry, the video before the intro, which is my Monaco one. We're going to go for a similar one to that. So, yeah, it's basically, I'm going to try and keep it as quick as possible, but, you know, you can make it harder, like, later on, like, using some of the techniques that I'm going to show you in this sort of video. So first of all, I always like to get the pen tool, and then we change the stroke. So you've got the fill and the stroke at the top, which you see here. We're going to change it to white, the stroke. With the fill, if you click the word fill, you can select like either solid color, linear gradient, radial gradient. I always click it to none, because then it doesn't obviously fill. Because if you, like for example, if I was to draw like a shape here, like as you can see, it's already stroking, but like it would fill. If I click solid color, it would fill for me. But then if I click it again and then go to none, I just get the stroke. So what we're going to do is we're going to just draw a line here. So I'm going to click just somewhere about here, and then hold shift so it makes a straight line, and then just click there so it draws a stroke for me. And then you want to click the mouse pointer in the top left, just under file, and just click elsewhere, so you basically deselect it. So as you can see, we've got a line already. I mean, it looks amazing already. It looks amazing. So what we're going to do is then I'm going to select the layer down here, and then press Ctrl D so it duplicates it. And I'm just going to move it down. Like, there is a quicker way of doing this, but I normally just hold shift and just keep pressing down until I'm fine with whereabouts I want it to look. We'll put it about there. That's where we'll put it. And then you can see that it's sort of out of the center a bit. Like, you can see this bit's obviously a bit more it's a bit off center, the word I'm looking for. So I want to basically select both layers and then go to a line, which is in the bottom right here. I'm just going to drag that up so you can see it. So a line, and then we want to click the horizontal center alignment. So we click that, and then it'll automatically align it for me. So that, oh no, is that words? I think that's words. No, it doesn't look like it's words. Or maybe I'm just being blind. Let me. No, okay, that's not it. Yeah, it doesn't. It sort of looks. It doesn't really look in line. I don't know. Oh, maybe actually because I've selected both layers. Oh, there we are. So yeah, with with a line, you have to like select each layer separately. So as you can see, it's now in the center of the piece for me, or the composition. So as you can see, we can like edit these lines later, or animate these lines later. But I'll show you that probably later into the tutorial. We just want to get the basics done first. All right, so next for me is the text. I always do the text next. So I use a few different fonts. I have got the Premier League font, but I'm not going to use that in this tutorial because I think it's probably not best to use it in this one. So I'm going to use a font called Din Pro, which you might recognize from being in the FIFAs. I use that for quite a few of the things in the sort of episodes that I do as well, or the videos. It's one of my favorite fonts. We're just going to size it down as well. So I use the sort of character tab here, and then I always try and change the font to see what it looks like. So actually that's in the center, so I want to make that like on the left. So as you can see, I've got the font there. I'm not really happy with that. I'm going to change it to bold. Bold looks okay, but I think like if it was smaller, it would look a lot better. I don't know if I can squeeze that down. I don't know if I can make the font sort of squeeze down a bit. I'm trying to see if that. No, I don't think there is a way of. Actually, maybe that. No, that's not going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the font and then go back to the character tab and change it to. No, that's too small. 35 is not too bad. So 35. Also, there will be bits where like you'll edit the text. So I'm doing it in caps lock. I'm doing it in caps lock at the moment. So you'll edit the text and you'll click away, and then oh no, sorry, I didn't edit the text. Let's put verses, and then it will say refresh disabled. All you have to do is basically press caps lock again, and the composition will come up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put Manchester City, sorry, versus Manchester United. So I'm going to make the font a bit of a different color. So I'm going to put that there. Now with the badges, I already have most of them set up already, but to show you how I do them, I basically load up Photoshop. So we're going to go over to Photoshop, and then we're going to go to new to create a new sort of file, and then I make them 200 by 200 pixels. So I make the sort of canvas that size, and then I want to go over to Google, and then we're just going to get a Man City badge. For this one, you need a Man City badge that is a PNG. Normally, I go on Wikipedia, but normally you can find bigger size ones and much better quality ones. So we're just going to save that. We're going to go to Man City badge. And then as you can see, it's saved down here. So I normally just click and drag. So I'm using Google Chrome. So I just click and drag it into Photoshop. And then it will snap to the canvas size. So it will automatically resize it for me. Then I'm going to export it. So it's already 200 by 200 pixels. So as you can see, that's my thumbnails. So we'll go to A tutorials. We'll go to badges. I'll create a new folder. So I'll just call it 200px for 200 pixels. Then I'll call it Man City. If I can type. There we are. So we've got the Man City badge. And then we're going to go back to Google. And I'm going to get a Manchester United badge. Because that's who we're taking on. So I'm just trying to find. Yep, that's a PNG. So I'll call it Man United. Just call it Man United. Same again. You click and drag from Google Chrome, and then click it onto here, and then it will snap to that size. Although it's a little bit off, so we're just gonna resize it a little bit to make sure it fits the entire canvas. So there we are. That is good. That's good enough for me. And same again. We're going to export it. We're going to call it Manchester United. So there we are. That's pretty much all I do in Photoshop, by the way. I used to do more, but like it's only really for the badges. Like you could probably do them in After Effects much easier, but for me, like I like doing them in Photoshop and then importing them later. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to Project in the top left, and then we're going to click File, and then Import, and then File. As you can see, they're all my renders, which I have of players in my series. So I'm just going to go and get the badges, which I've resized. Just for the ease of this, you don't have to do this, but I like to do it just to make it a bit cleaner. I create a folder, so like in the bottom left here of the project bit, you have like 3 buttons here. In the middle is create a new folder. So I'm going to call that badges. And then I'm going to select both badges and then drag them into the folder. So then it's much cleaner and then it's much easier for me. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the badges later. But that's basically the tutorial on how to resize them and then import them. So what we're going to do now, we're going to just add a bit more text. So I'm just going to add the subs. I don't know, I'm just going to put Bravo... who else? Who else plays for City? Actually, I'm just going to put random players' names. I know Company doesn't play for City, but I just want to put random players in. Otamendi, De Bruyne. Who else plays for them? Sane. I can't even spell. Sane and Jesus, and we'll go Diaz. I don't know. So what we're going to do is we're going to align that again. So in the Align tab, which is just behind me. So I drag it up. I've got it in the bottom right. If you can't find it, I believe you just click Window and then Align. So Window in the top sort of bar, and then Align, and then it'll allow you to find it, which should be next to Paragraph. So I always select that. So then that will align it into the center for me. And as I said, we're going to animate the text later. So like basically the only animation I'm going to show you is the one that I normally use, which is that it appears on the screen. So like for example, it looks like this is going to be solid, like this area here, but it appears and then like just here. So instead of like, so it'll come from up there but like not be visible. So like I'll just obviously go there, bring it down a bit, and then it'll be, oh actually sorry, and then it'll just appear like here. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do, and I'm going to do the same with the title as well. So with the players, now I'm going to show you like the sort of animation that I've done for my Premier League series or my Premier League team sheet. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So once again, we're going to go to new composition. This time we're going to change the composition size to 500 by 500. We're going to keep it at 30 seconds. You can reduce it depending on time, but I'll just show you how to do this. So there we go. We've got the composition. So this is going to, so I'm going to drag that out here. I'm going to rename that to Edison, and I'll tell you why in a second, why I'm going to rename it to Edison, and then how we're going to work around that. So I've got all the renders online from PremierLeague.com. So if you go to the Premier League website, as you can see, I've got the Man City team here. I go to a player, and then I click on the picture, right click on the picture, and go save image as, and then I'll save it as a render. So as you can see, I've already got like 11 players. I think that's 11. Yeah, 11 players already saved, and that's going to be what I'm going to show you how to do. Or how to do, sorry, the team sheet. So I've already got them saved, so I name them as well, because they get named as like a random code, so I always name them. And there we are. So what we're going to do now, so I've saved all the renders that I'm going to use. So we're going to go to File, Import File again. So, sorry, File, Import File. And then we're going to go to Renders, which I've already saved in a separate folder. I'll just show you that, like, I'm just going to show you this. So on my sort of Huddersfield series, so I've got all the renders. So any player that isn't playing for me, I've got them saved out of the folder. And then when I have them in the folder, so you can see, like, I've got loads of players which I've sort of like edited. But that's basically the renders that I always save. So I save them separately just for the ease of the ease of access, basically. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the folder which I've saved them all in. And then we're going to select them all. So you select the first, hold shift, and then click the last one, and it'll select them all for you. And then it'll import them all for me. Once again, we're going to create a folder. So I'm going to call them Man City Renders. So, because they are renders. And then I'm going to select all of them and drag them into the folder. So then it's just a bit cleaner. The compositions we're going to organize later as well. So don't worry about that. But basically what we're going to do, so I'm going to drag Edison into here. So we're going to resize them a little bit because is no, actually no, for this, no, we're not going to resize them. We're going to just keep them the same. So I keep a very basic sort of structure or sort of shape structure with like team sheets. I don't go overboard, and I try not to like make it too fancy. So it's normally just squares and rectangles. That's all it is squares and rectangles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the rectangle tool in the top right, or you can press Q on your keyboard. So we're going to get the rectangle tool. Make sure it's filled as well, because this one obviously we didn't select a fill earlier. So we're going to make it a solid color. I'm going to make it, well, I want a similar sky blue, but I want it a bit darker. So I'm going to copy the hex code again from the website that I'm using. Copy it into there. But we're going to just drag it down a bit to make it a bit darker. Make it about there. Yeah, I think that'll do. And then I'm just going to drag... Oh, I just got to get rid of the stroke as well. So we're just going to drag it over Edison. I'm going to get rid of the stroke. So in the stroke you can like just drag and point in the top, like here where the is. So I'm going to drag that to 0. So as you can see, it's a bit basic. It's not obviously outstanding. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to draw another shape, and I'm going to make it white. So I'm going to draw a square over the shape which I've just drawn first as well. So I'm going to draw a square over the rectangle. So I'll go back actually. So we'll get the rectangle tool again. And we'll draw a square over the rectangle, just like that. So it doesn't really matter if it's not in line. It's just, I'd rather have it over, so then, and you'll understand why in a second. And then what I do, now there may be quicker ways to this, but I prefer to do it this way. So what I'm going to do, so the rectangle layer, we're just going to actually press enter. So if you press enter on the layer, you can actually rename it. So I'm just going to rename it so you know which ones I'm clicking. So the rectangle one is now called rectangle, and the square one's called square. So we're just going to select the rectangle tool and press Ctrl D to duplicate it. And then we're going to drag the layer up to up above the square. And then you want to press F4 on your keyboard, and it will bring this sort of menu up. And for the square layer, you'll see this track matte here. What we'll want to do is call it alpha matte, because then it will make the rectangle disappear. And now the square is now, as you can see, the square is now within like the parameters of the rectangle. So if I was to do alpha matte, like you'd see that it's alpha inverted matte, you'll see it's outside. But like if I do alpha matte, then it's inside. And if I take off the track matte, then you can see it's the whole square again. So we're going to go to alpha matte, and as you can see, it's now within the rectangle. So that's all right. But what we're going to do now is I'm going to now type in what the player is. So it's going to be Edison. So I'm going to put that in bold. You can align it, but a lot of the time it won't align into the center of like the rectangle, because it would probably be about there. So it'd be a bit more off-center, because obviously you've got the square taking up a bit of the rectangle. So you're basically aligning it to the middle of this rectangle area here. So I'm just going to make sure it's just about in line. So we're going to put it about there. And then I'm going to put the number, but I'm going to change that font. So I can't remember Edison's number. I think it is number 1. No, it's number 13, isn't it? Is it 13? I generally cannot remember. Oh, 31. I was close. I was close there. So what we're going to do is just call it 31. We might make that font, or we're going to make that bigger actually as well, just so it fills up the square a bit more. And then we're going to make that actually the same color as this area here. So what you want to do is, like, you want to select the text and then press this sort of eyedropper tool and click that, and then now you can see that it sort of looks a bit better there. So that is pretty much the basic of the composition that I do. So now we're going to, like, sort of clean it up a little bit. So with Edison, I'm going to sort of drag him down a little bit so he doesn't pop up too much. So I think that's probably a good height. And then as you can see, like at the bottom here, you can see inside that. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the Edison layer, and then we're going to click the rectangle tool again. So now this time it's going to create a mask. So the mask, whatever's within that sort of square, you can see. So as long as you've got the Edison layer selected, we're going to now click and drag, and now it will create this yellow box. And as you can see, like, I'm now creating a mask for Edison. So if we click to about there, that's pretty much, now you can't see, like, obviously the bottom half of his body. It's just what's within the mask. So if I select the mask, you can see what's in there. If you ever need to change it as well, what you want to do is you want to click the Edison layer again and click the mask. And then you want to click one of the corners and then hold shift. And then it will allow you to, like, sort of like resize the mask like that. And as long as you're holding shift as well when you're dragging up, because if you're not, then you can, like, obviously do that, which it's a bit funky, but you don't want to do that. But if you're holding shift and then drag up, you can, like, crop it a little bit more. But that is basically the masks there. So that's basically perfect how I want it, like, to look at the end. As I said, you can make it a bit better, like looking like my Premier League 1 took a bit of time to make sure the colours are right and to make it look cleaner. For this tutorial, I don't want to, like, be talking too much, so we're going to make just the basics here. So as you can see, we've got Edison now done, and now we're going to animate it, so then it all sort of, like, goes from not being there to all, like, appearing on the screen, because I'd rather, like, when the team sheet's on here, like, you know, the player would appear there, and then the 4 players would appear there, etc., or the 3 players, and then etc. So what we're going to do is we're going to now animate it. So I'm going to select the Edison layer again. I'm just going to make sure that I've got it right. No, actually, this is not right. So what we're going to do, actually, instead, is we're going to draw a new shape layer. Now, as I said, there are faster ways of doing this. Bear in mind, like, you probably know a faster way of doing this, but I'm trying to obviously teach it as if you don't know what After Effects is or how to use it or etc. So, what we're going to do is we're going to draw another shape layer. And I'm going to try and draw it as best as possible to fit in within the rectangle. So we're going to draw it over there. I'm going to just sort of resize it a little bit. Bear in mind, if you try and resize the square on the side, it will resize on both sides. So it's not going to, like, just point and drag from one side, unless there is a shortcut to that, but I'm not 100% sure. But as you can see, like, if I'm dragging it from one side, it will drag from both. So you just want to click in there and just make sure it's in line. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the shape layer 1. So I'm going to call it Edison Mask. I'm just going to call it that. And then I'm going to drag it down to here. And it's going to be very similar to what we did with the square in the alpha mat. So with the Edison layer, we're going to click where it says none at the bottom there. And then hold and click and then alpha mat. So now what's going to happen is whatever, like, Edison isn't in will be basically masked off. So if I drag the square down, as you see, it's cutting off. So it's very similar to the mask, but in this one we're going to animate the animation of him coming up into the mask. So what we're going to do now for Edison is we're going to click the Edison layer again and press P on our keyboard to get the position. And then on here you see this sort of stopwatch by the position. You want to click that, and then we're just going to drag him down. So it's drag right to go down. So we're just going to drag him down. So as you can see, he's disappearing like behind the sort of mask that we've just set up. So we're going to drag him down to about 690. I'll be about 690. It'll be different on your measurements, but you want to drag him down so then he can't be seen. And then we're going to go to about a second. So we're going to drag to about a second here. And then we're going to drag up to what it was before, which I think was about 269. So about 269. And then see these two keyframes that we got here. These two sort of like squares or diamonds, you want to call them. We're gonna like click and select both of them. So click and drag to select both of them. Press F9 on our keyboards because they basically ease them in, which means that you can sort of change the animation or how quickly it pops up and stuff like that. And what I'm going to do is we're going to click the graph editor in the top right here. So you'll click this. If it's not coming up with this sort of like thing, you want to right click in the area and edit speed graph. If you've got value graph, it'll come up like this. But if you edit speed graph, you'll get this sort of like what do you call them? This line. We'll just call it this line. So what I want to do is I want to click and drag over the two sort of points, and then I'm going to drag one of the points here, and then I'm going to drag this one back a bit. So basically it's going to get like really fast up to here and then just drop. So basically if I watch back if I watch that back, it's a bit fast actually. I'm going to actually make it 2 seconds. So we're going to drag this to 2 seconds. So it's about there. So we're going to drag. So as you can see, it sort of looks better now. It sort of looks better. It's a bit faster. It pops up a bit better. So I can see like Edison just pops up like there. So it's like so yeah, that's pretty much the Edison bit. Now with the rectangles and all that, we want to try and edit them in a way which means that they'll all pop up at the same time, or all pop up like very in a sequence. Basically I want to sort of explain is in a sequence. I want everything like the player's name coming up first and then the player coming up, or the player's name coming up at the same time the player is. That's probably better actually. So what we're going to do, we're going to animate the text next, because the rectangle can be done pretty simply. So with the Edison text, you want to select the Edison layer text. So you'll see it will have like the sort of squares around it. And then we're going to get the rectangle tool again. And once again, it's going to draw a mask when you click and drag over the sort of rectangle. So you don't have to make it like perfect, but like if you could get it like in line with this sort of white square here, that would be pretty good. So what we want to do, so now I've drawn the mask around the Edison text, you can see that it like, so basically this now acts as like sort of like an alpha map without having to draw another layer. So with the Edison text, you see when you click it down here, like if you click the layer down, so like if I click this arrow to bring all the stuff down, like the text, the mask and the transform, you'll see this button on the right called Animate, which is going to be what we're going to use. So you want to click the sort of triangle or the play button next to it and go to position. And then this is going to animate the position of the text within the mask. So the mask isn't going to move, but the text within the mask is going to move. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to 0 seconds again. Now, bear in mind, I might change this so then it's on 1 second and then it will start 3 seconds, if that makes sense. So basically everything's a 2 second sort of like animation. But I think if you start from 0 seconds, it can be a bit too quick. There are ways of like editing it later, but like if you just want to do the animation like this, then you want to probably start from 1 second. But I'm just going to start from 0. So once again, like once you select position, it will come up with this range selector 1 and then position. We'll click the stopwatch again. And in this time, I'm going to show you like how I normally do it, because I feel like this is quicker for me. So I'm going to click the stopwatch. We're not going to edit this though. We're going to go to about 2 seconds. And then we're going to like click it. We're going to drag the sort of left coordinate here to about here. So as you can see, it's now off the screen, so you can't see the mask anymore. Like if I was to drag it here, you could see it, but if I drag it to there, you can't. So I'm going to make it to about 290.0 and 0.0. Yeah, my failure to speak is coming out here. But as you can see, like, I'm basically, the text is going off as, like, Edison comes up, which is not what I want. But what we're going to do to get around that is I'm going to, once again, click and drag over the two sort of diamond keyframes. Right click to get keyframe assistant. And then we're going to time reverse the keyframes. So what it's going to do is it's going to swap the two keyframes around. So now instead it's going to like change the entire position. So as you can see, it's a lot better for me because at least I know in the center where it's going to be. And as you can see now, Edison appears as the text appears for his number. So yeah, that's pretty much like, I'm gonna just drag it up so you can see it. But like as you can see, like the Edison appears as the picture appears. So that is pretty much it as in terms of like animating the text. We're now going to animate the number as well. It's going to be the same process. So we're going to select the 31 and then we're going to get the rectangle tool again, or Q on your keyboard, and we're just going to draw a mask around the 31, or try to draw a mask within the square. And same again, so when you select the 31 layer, you'll see this animate sort of like track map thing. You want to click the play button next to it and then press position. And we're just going to start from the start again. So I'm going to select the stopwatch to create a keyframe, go to about 2 seconds, and then I'm going to change the position. So it's going to come from up above. So as you can see, so basically now what it's doing is it's going up and above. And then we're going to time reverse those keyframes again. So we're going to select both the keyframes. Right click one of the keyframes, keyframe assistant, time reverse the keyframe. So now basically, as you can see, it all seems to appear. So all the text and all the players are animated to how it is. We're going to make it a bit cleaner in a way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and select all the keyframes here. Press F9 to easy ease them, just so it looks a bit cleaner. And we're going to edit them in the same way. So I'm just going to go to the graph editor again and just edit them in the same way, so they pop in a way. It sort of looks okay. Like it doesn't look too bad. But yeah, it doesn't look too bad. Like I think that will do for the basics. Like as you can see, like Edison pops up and his number pops up as the player pops up. So, but as I said like earlier, you can obviously drag the keyframes to start from 1 second. So what we're going to do for this, to show you how to do that, is we're going to select all the layers. So we're going to select the 31, hold shift, and then select the Edison layer at the bottom, and we're going to press U, because when you press U, it will only give you the keyframes of everything you've edited. So every keyframe you've edited on the layers will only appear, which is really handy. If you press U again, then it disappears, but if you press U, they appear. So if you're pressing the key U, and then I'm just going to click and select all the keyframes and then just drag them to 1 second. So then it starts from 1 second and then gets to about 3. And that's pretty much like the animation of how I do it. Now we're going to animate the animation of the players and the text. Now we're going to animate the rectangles as well, so they appear at the same time. So what we're going to do, because I've now moved the keyframes to 1 second to 3 seconds, I've moved them to 1 second in to 3 seconds. We're going to use the first seconds to animate the sort of square and the rectangle. So what we're going to do, once again, for this one, the square is pretty easy. So what I've done, because it's obviously an alpha mat to the rectangle above it. So this rectangle here, obviously I've created a new rectangle above it. But because it's alpha matted, it's only within the parameters of that rectangle. So I can edit this easily. So I'll press P on my keyboard again, press the stopwatch on the square layer, and then we're going to just drag it. So as you can see, it's disappearing within the mask that I've selected for the rectangle. And with the square, then we're just going to do the same again, which is click and drag, time reverse the keyframes, and then we're just going to press F9 again to easy ease them. So as you can see, the rectangle will now drop down. Although I think what we're going to do actually, we're going to just select these 2 keyframes here. I'm just going to actually drag it to about 2 seconds actually. We're going to make it 2 seconds. Because essentially what is going to happen is the rectangle is going to appear first, and then the square is going to come down, and then the players are going to appear. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to make sure that's fine. That is alright. So I'm going to drag that to about a second. So I've now dragged the square keyframes to a second. And then with the rectangle, what I'm going to do again, I'm going to duplicate the layer again. and then the rectangle underneath. So you've got now rectangle 3 and rectangle, which is the original layer. So if you want to select the rectangle original layer and do the same again to alpha map, so now it's going to mask itself within its own layer, if that makes sense. So essentially what you're going to do is if you press P on your keyboard for the normal rectangle layer, do the stopwatch again. We'll go to about 1 second, and then I'm going to just drag that here. As you can see, Edison is cut off, isn't cut off properly, so I'm going to change that in a second. So I'm now going to drag this off. So now from, I think it's about from here, that's when it'll start appearing. So if I just reverse the keyframes again. So as you can see, that appears, and then the square appears, and then the players appear. I just need to sort out that Edison tab, because I think the I can't remember which square it is. Oh yeah, this square. So what I need to do is I need to just close the mask a little bit. So I need to just close that off a bit. Just resize that a little. So it should only appear there. So now I've just changed the Edison mask. So as you can see, it's now you can't see Edison, because basically when you come to the team sheet, you don't want to see the player's picture appearing. So you can see the whole animation is now pretty much done. So I'm just going to fit that into the screen. So if I click and drag, like you can see the sort of bar comes through, and then the square comes down, and then the text will come through with the player. So that is pretty much it. That's how I animate the entire sort of like player. You can make this a bit more advanced, but like as I said, it's just the basics for this tutorial. So that's essentially it for the Edison one. So I've now done Edison. You can make this cleaner. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to the team sheet test, so the test composition, and then I'm going to click and drag Edison here. So as you can see, he doesn't appear straight away because it starts from 1 second. So as you can see, Edison now appears there. So it will basically start the animation actually from the start, so like the line will come there. I'm going to scale that down to about 50. You can make this bigger, like it depends on like the team sheet you're creating, but like that's pretty much it. So Edison is going to go there. Now you're probably going to be wondering, oh Proudly, do you have to do the entire process again with like every other player? Do I have to go through all that animation? No, basically it's pretty simple how you do this. So with the Edison sort of like composition in the project files, actually I'm going to create a new folder for this as well. I'm just going to call it goalkeepers, and then I'm just going to put Edison in there in a second, but I'm going to create a new folder for that. So if you select the Edison composition within the project files and then press Ctrl D, it will allow you to copy the composition again, but it will allow you to change the elements of the next composition. The next composition. So for example, like if I just click Edison again, you can see Edison's there again. And then if I drag the Edison 2 into there, and I'm going to scale it down to 50 again. So I drag that to there. What we're going to do is we're now going to go into here, and we're going to change this to Carl Walker. So I'm going to put that into the center. Carl Walker is going to play left back for this ease of the tutorial. Like, I'm not a Man City manager. I don't know their best positions. So I've now changed this to Carl Walker. So as you see, if you go back to the team sheet, like that's now changed to Carl Walker, but the Edison one still stays the same. So you can see what I'm doing here. So with this, so as you can see, and what we're going to do now is basically everything is still animated the same. So everything is still animated the same, and all we're going to do is just replace the footage. So with the Edison layer selected, the Edison picture selected, sorry, on the second composition, so the duplicate composition you've just created, you want to select the Edison PNG down here, and then we're going to select the Carl Walker one. So we're going to select that in the projects, and then you want to hold Alt on your keyboard and click and drag, and then it will replace the footage for you, but it will keep the same animation. So as you can see, Carl Walker will now appear instead, and then when you go to the team sheet, it's Carl Walker. That's pretty much it. That's how you do it. And then I obviously then put the compositions within the sort of folder that they are. So Edison will go into goalkeepers, Carl Walker will go into defenders, etc, etc. So as you can see, if we go to the composition now, they all will do it at the same time. I will teach you how to sort of offset it a little bit. So like Carl Walker will appear a little bit later than Edison, but that will happen very shortly. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to basically select... I'm going to put the Edison tab, the Edison thing here. Sorry, the Edison composition here. So I'm just going to obviously try and put them into a formation which will fit this team sheet. You can obviously scale it down or make this bigger. So like the 2 lines, you can make these higher or like etc. or make them smaller or the composition smaller. So I'm just going to put Edison there again. I'm just going to put Carl Walker there again. So I'm just going to try and fit these in as best as I can. Now this obviously isn't going to be like the cleanest, but like you can obviously do this later on. So what I'm actually going to do is, to save time, I'm just going to keep duplicating Edison, and then just dragging him into position. So I'm just going to put him in like a 3-3-3-1 formation or something like that. And then I'm going to show you how to do it quickly as well, like in terms of like changing the composition quickly. So for example, so what? Actually, sorry. I don't want to jump too far ahead. So I'm just going to put these into formation. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to pre-compose the team sheet. So this isn't going to be like edited on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the first Edison tab and then go all the way to the bottom composition. So as you can see, there should be 11 layers selected. I'm going to right click and click pre-compose. And now I'm going to call it team sheet. So as you can see, it's now called team sheet. And then when you click that composition, it will allow you to edit it within that. And then anytime I edit it within here, it will then edit it on here. So pretty simple. But like in order to replace the footage, so if we're replacing composition, so let's say for example you do a Sterling one, or I will do a Sterling one actually, quickly. I think Sterling's number 7, isn't he? So we're just going to do a Sterling one quickly just to show you how it's done. And now with some players, obviously their names are going to be longer, so you may have to edit the position of their name. So I'm just going to drag that to there because that would be more in the center. And then we're going to just put Sterling there. So once again, like if you're trying to replace the footage, you want to click the layer that you're going to replace, and then the layer in the project file, which is on the left. Hold Alt, click and drag over, and then as you can see, it just replaces it for you. So in order to edit the team sheet, so like for example, I do every sort of composition first. So then later on when I'm doing the team sheets, it's really easy to like replace the footage. So for example, if I'm going to put Sterling here, or I'm going to put Sterling here, I'm going to click the layer, which I'm going to replace. And then as you can see, it's selected down here. We're now going to find, so I'm going to rename this to Sterling, just so you know. Like you can rename these as well. I rename them just so I know which one's which player. So we're going to select the composition here, and same again, just hold Alt, drag it over, and as you see, it just replaces it. Replaces it for me, and then as you see, it's just a lot quicker. So as you see, Edison's playing pretty much every position as well. So and Carl Walker's somehow doubled. But that's pretty much how you do the sort of team sheet on my sort of thing. So as you see, I've animated the team sheet now. You can add other bits like the pitch and all that, but that will probably be for another tutorial, another day. I'll show you like more advanced techniques or advanced techniques. These aren't like, I'm not saying I'm an After Effects expert, but like these are like sort of techniques that I use in my videos. So as you can see, I'm pretty happy with that for now, for a sort of like basic tutorial. I think what we're going to do actually with these lines, I'm going to drag them down a bit, just so the pitch is a little bit bigger. And then we're going to just do that. So put that there. So now what we're going to do is I can move the team sheet as well. So if I want to offset players as well, so for example, if I'm going to do with Edison first like appearing, and then like the defense appearing, and then the midfield appearing, and then the attack appearing, what we're going to do is we're going to select all the layers here, and then we're going to right click and then click time and then enable time remapping. And if I drag this up, you can see that all these like keyframes are like basically the start of the composition. So if I select these 3 players here, which is going to be the defense, these 3 here, and then drag these keyframes off a little bit. Actually, that hasn't worked. Sorry, maybe I got to drag the keyframes. So if I drag them into about 1 second-ish, and then I'll drag the next 3 to about here, and then the next 4 to about here. So as you can see, you can already see it from here, what's happening. So if I go back to the team sheet, or the team sheet, sorry, main composition, as you can see, if I start from the start, Edison now appears, and then the defense appears, and then the midfield appears, and then the attack appears. So as you see, it's offset. So that's how I do like the sort of offset in the team sheet. And I'm trying to think if there's anything more really I need to show you. I think that's pretty much all the basics of the team sheet that I do. I don't really do much else. I can show you like how to get scrolling text actually. I'll show you how to do that. So actually in one of my videos I had a Monaco team sheet where I had all the fixtures at the bottom. Normally I don't recommend it because it can be a bit long to like change it all the time. But I can show you like how to sort of like make it look like it's scrolling. So what we'll do actually, we'll use it for the subs. So I'm going to show you just like how I make it a bit cleaner. So with the subs here, I'm just going to actually just hide the layer a second. I'm going to get a rectangle. And I'm just going to click away. Make sure that you're not clicking any of the layers here because then it will create a mask. You don't want to create a mask, you want to create a shape. I'm going to not fill it, and I'm going to add a 3 pixel stroke, and we're just going to put it to about here. So I'm just going to show you how to do scrolling text and all that. So what we want to do is, so it's into there. So as you see, now I'm going to get the subs ready. Actually, you know what? Actually, forget the subs. We're gonna just, I could put the subs somewhere else, but like for this, if you want to have scrolling text, I'll show you. So I'm just gonna like fill in a load of rubbish here. I'm just gonna like spam the keyboards. Obviously, you're gonna put stuff in which you want to put in, but I'm just gonna spam it just so you can see what the scrolling text is like. So as you can see, it looks great. Like it looks like I'm just typing code. I'm a programmer. So same again. We're going to click and drag. So make sure you've got the text layer selected. Go to the rectangle. And then draw... oh no, that's not a mask. Sorry, I've selected the wrong layer. So as you can see, I'm already making mistakes. So you want to go to the text layer, go to the shape layer, and then click and drag it, and then it will create a mask for you again. So it'll make sure you have a yellow box. And then you want to click and drag the mask over the sort of shape layer you've already created. So this shape layer where there's no fill. So as you see, if I zoom in a little bit, oh, the mask is a little bit off, like a very, very little off. So I'm just going to drag it in a bit. So it's got to line up with this sort of line here. So like the inner line, or sorry, the inner part of the stroke, it's got to line up with there. So as you can see, I've now got the text there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to animate the text again. And I'm going to go to the start. So I've already gone to animate and then position, so you click there, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the stopwatch again in the bottom left to make a keyframe. I'm going to drag all the way to the end, and then I'm going to just drag this slowly. So as you can see, it's now going to like sort of slowly scroll across. I'm going to ease them in. It doesn't really make much difference because obviously it's 30 seconds. But as you can see now, what should happen? Actually, I'm going to change this keyframe. So, because I always tend to like try and fill up the box as much as possible. So I try and fill up the box, and then so then basically it looks like everything's scrolling. And then essentially what's going to happen is if I sort of render this a second, it's going to render. I'm just going to let that render. So as you can see, I'm going to let that render a second, and then I'm going to play it to you back, and then we're going to see how it looks. And then that was pretty much the basics of the tutorial. I've shown you a few techniques which you can use. Like, I won't animate the Man City versus Manchester United bit, just because I've shown you the tech. Actually, no, sorry, no, I will show you. If you need any help. So as you can see, it's just rendering now. So what's going to happen if I fit it? So you can see it's animating, and now the text is scrolling at the bottom, and now all the players are animating. So that's pretty much how I create the team sheet, and then I just talk over it. You can like create pictures as well and stuff like that, but yeah, it's not really necessity. If you want the text to sort of scroll sort of like longer, like so it carries on scrolling towards the end of the composition, what I normally do is I get the keyframe and then I click and drag it like off the screen. So then it carries on going. So as you can see, it's still going as like the compositions come to an end. But yeah, that's pretty much like how you create scrolling text. And then finally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to animate the text here. So I want to select the text again. Once again, get the rectangle tool or press Q on your keyboard and then create a mask. So we're going to create a mask onto the top of this stroke here. So we get it to about there is fine. Same again, we're going to select the sort of text tool, or sorry, the text layer. Go to Animate, Position. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to... I should do Animate the Lines as well, actually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to animate the text. So I'm going to drag it down so it disappears there. Once again, click and drag. Right-click the keyframe. Right-click the keyframe to get Keyframe Assistant. Time reverse the keyframes, and then there we are. So it will appear, and press F9 again to ease them in. We're going to edit that to make it pop a little bit. Because I like it to pop. There we are. So that looks a lot better. So basically, if I show you the entire composition now, if I show you the entire composition, it should look quite nice. So you can see the Man City Manchester United thing appears at the same time the team is appearing, and now the team appears as well. And yeah, that's pretty much the basics of like the team sheet. I'll show you how to animate the lines quickly, and that will probably be it. So as you see, that is pretty much like the team. Obviously, it can be a bit slower. You can make it a bit slower. That does go up a bit quickly. But basically, what you'd have to do is just drag the last keyframes back a bit. So make it like 3 seconds or 4 seconds, just to make it a bit slower. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just animate the lines. So I'm just going to go and get the shape layer. So I've got, I'm going to just rename them to line 1 and line 2. And what we're going to do, once again, is we're going to, what we're going to do is we're going to select the line 1 tool. Go to click the arrow on the left, so it drags or brings down this drop down menu. And then you see add here, click the play button and go to trim paths. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get the drop down menu again, and we're going to go to end, the end one, and we're going to select the stopwatch to create a keyframe, and then we're going to drag this back. So basically what it's going to do is disappear. We're going to ease them, we're going to time reverse them again, and then now, so as you can see, like the line now comes up, or the line now draws itself in, and then the text appears. And then we're just going to do that to make this easier as well. If you select the end here, so if you select end or click there, it will select both the keyframes for you. And then what you want to do is just copy it into there, or press Control C, press Control V on the line 2 layer, and then it will just select the keyframes for you. So now if I re-render it, I'll show you. As you can tell, it's pretty boring, isn't it? But like, this is unedited proudly. So you see both the lines are now drawing itself. So the whole animation pretty much draws itself now. With the box, I don't tend to normally animate it. Like the one where the substitutes will go, or like the fixtures will go. But that is pretty much it. That is pretty much the tutorial there. Like, that's how I animate the team sheets, or how to animate a team sheet, should I say. So that's essentially it. If you have any questions, do let me know. I can answer them as best as possible. Hopefully you've learned something from this as well. As you can tell, I don't know how long the video has been, but normally this takes me a lot longer, just because I'm quite a perfectionist. But I think if you're watching this tutorial, you don't want to really care that much about like perfection just yet. You want to like understand the basics. But that's pretty much it. So as I said, if you have any questions, just drop me a question. I can answer it as best as I can. I'm away this weekend. So this video has actually gone out on the Saturday, well, I'm going to probably say Saturday midday this has gone out. So I'm not uploading again until Monday. But yeah, drop a like if you've enjoyed it, drop a subscription if you're new, or you're into After Effects or stuff like that. And that's pretty much it. That is literally the tutorial. So I will chat to you next time, whenever that is, where probably more Football Management failure.